here today to have two wonderful guest speakers today. The first one being our Marion County Prosecutor Ryan Mears, who will be going over some of the laws and effects that will take place, like open carry on July 1. Some other things that the prosecutor endeavors that they've been doing, those efforts. And our second guest speaker will be Indiana State Senator J.B. Ford from District 29. Pleasure to have him as our second guest speaker, along with our monthly reports. So for those that have not been with us before the meeting, we thank you. If this is your first time joining us, we just know that the HOPE team, which stands for Helping Others Prosper Economically.
Excuse me. The acoustics are not the best with the air conditioners running, and this Kim is definitely speaking, and I hear chatter all along. Now, I'm sorry, but this is too important not to be able to hear what she's saying. Amen? Amen. Thank you so much.
But with that, every month we meet to collaborate, learn, find out what's in the community that's free, low cost, and affordable. And in the times that we're in, not only in our state, but nationally now, with gas, food prices, housing prices, now more than ever, we feel like efforts like this is just simply our part, but hoping that others in the city as well will make sure that people join together and connect together for the purpose and the benefits so everybody can prosper economically. So with that being said, I'm going to go over the purpose and the mission, which hopefully everyone has an agenda for today. If not, there's a few extras up here. But for the HOPE team, our purpose is to unite, educate, and identify individuals, research networks, programs and projects promoting individual self-sufficiency and strengthening family and community. Our mission, via a collaborative volunteer effort, join together various individuals, organizations, and efforts that are committed to work together to address the needs of individuals and families within our community that are seeking and or in need of help, services, or information as they are undergoing transitional changes, to empower, opening the knowledge and opportunity for underserved people to achieve their own success and permanent stability. So with that, we want to thank, that is our purpose and our mission. We want to thank again Pastor Dorsey for opening up the doors of True Vine again for us to meet this month. I want to also thank Shalita Purnell with Foster, doing the lunch. And it's a mighty good lunch. And it's a mighty good little snack and get your napkin lunch today. So with that, I want to go into introductions. Please just state your name or affiliation or just a resident. And then after that, we'll go to our first guest speaker, which will be Prosecutor Mears. And again, thank you all for being engaged in your community and being involved in a collaborative effort that has existed in Indianapolis for over 20 years. So with that, can we start with you, Tim?
Mary Maxim with the grandparent program.
So just want to have the grandparents to stand up. They want to hear our prosecutor taking today.
And while Shalita said that, just to point out for those who aren't familiar with the foster grandparents, that is a national effort where the ladies that you and gentlemen that you saw stand up just now, they go out and read to the children in daycares and elementary schools across the city. And so, in essence, they become some grandparents to some of the kids they read to, a mentor. And so it shows that our seniors are still valued and needed in our community. And so those are the ladies and the men, just part of it, that represent the foster grandparent program. So if you can continue on with your names, please. let me clear my mouth. Bruce Rogers, I'm from Foster Grandparent Program. Wonderful.
Judy Pilgrim, Foster Grandparent.
Caroline Whitaker, foster grandparent.
Petrie, Foster Grandparent.
Denise Freeman, foster grandparent.
Carla Jordan, Foster Grandparent.
Cassandra Barnes, foster grandparent. Linda Evans, foster grandparent.
Ooh, she said it loud.
I'm breaking the chain. Mina Musa, Project Azul.
Frank Hatfield, yes.
Patricia Haskett, a foster grandparent.
Hope Robinson, community social worker. And Kayla Bradley, community social worker.
Brandon Edwards, Office of Public Health and Safety.
Tequila Tinker Martin, Office of Public Health and Safety.
I'm Lance Dardine. I'm the day-to-day supervisor for the Mobile Crisis Assistance Team for IMPD.
And I want you next month.
You have me, ma'am. I'm also on page 6 if you need to get a hold of me before that.
Thank you.
And I know, is that everything that Eat Crime Watch?
I'm Baylor Ortiz, and I'm with Nurse Family Partnership of Goodwill.
Brittany Slaughter, same, I'm with Nurse Family Partnership of Goodwill.
Jennifer Joy, Marion County Prosecutor's Office. Douglas Corbett, also with Marion County Prosecutor's Office.
Ryan Harris, Marion County Prosecutor.
Jenny Sanders, retiree.
Shalita Pernia, community action of Greater Indianapolis.
All right.
Jackie Morgan, Life Success, Business and Benefits Consultant, also representing Aflac.
Anthony Burke, Marion County Public Health, and a grandparent and a great-grandparent.
Matthew Stewart with the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department Community Engagement and Outreach Bureau, and also the president and founder of School Speakers.
Very good.
Christoph Avenel Mellow Volunteer.
Tracy Smith, Department of Public Works.
DPW now.
Deidre Coleman, good afternoon. I'm with Kepler Institute and Community Action Advisory Board.
Tina Pillow, foster grandparent advisory board.
Carol Daniels, Social Work Manager, Health Net.
Louis Frayer, HDAF, Veterans Advantage.
Danny Nash, Director of Client Services with Community Action of Greater Indianapolis. This is my newest employee, Kyle Jackson. He's a case manager for Community Action.
Thank you. Welcome.
Tangela Floyd, Rosie's Tiny Tots Daycare Ministry. And two of our foster grandparents are here.
Good morning, everyone. Jamie Ford, I represent District 29 New State Senate.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jordan Patterson, and I'm the Special Programs Manager with Indigo.
All right. Wonderful.
Jared Long, and I am a grandparent. I'm at Tiny Tot Daycare.
Brianna Freeman, foster grandparent, and Rosie County Prosecutor. Lee Luce, foster grandparent, and Rick.
Mary Manning, foster grandparent over at S. Martin Center.
Roberta Reynolds, foster grandparent.
Okay, Ms. Roberta. Oh, I'm sorry.
Frank Sloan, retired captain with the IUPU Artist Department and assistant pastor of this church.
Fred Dorsey, pastor here at True Missionary Baptist Church, and also president of Community Resurrection Partnership.
James Logan, hope to
And again, I just want to say thank you to Pastor Dorsey, Shalita Purnell, James Logan, the materials, the efforts that go behind these meetings and make them happen. could not happen by one person. It does take a team. And so with that, I want to thank and give a shout out to all the individuals that helped make this meeting possible for all of us today. So with that being said, we have a very heavy subject coming from both of our guest speakers today, beginning with Prosecutor Mears. As we know, July 1 begins an open carry law. But again, people need to be aware and know what their rights are, how this affects them, if at all. And knowledge is always power. So when Prosecutor Mears wanted to come back and speak with us again this month, it was definitely received. And so with that, Prosecutor Mears, I'll turn the floor to you, sir. Thank you.
Well, first of all, it's great to be here. And thank you for putting this together. Thank you for allowing me to come. And Pastor Dorsey, thank you for always, opening up your church and letting everybody come in here. It's great to be here. My name is Ryan Mears. I'm a Marion County prosecutor. For those of you who are watching on TV, yes, I am wearing the Jordans. And so it's great to be here to kind of talk about what's going on in our community and what's going on at the prosecutor's office. And I think the first thing that everybody wants to talk about is the issue of violent crime in our community and what does that look like. And so in the courtroom, I wanted to let you guys know that the Marion County prosecutor's office has never been more successful. We have a 90% conviction rate on our homicide trials. That's not talking about plea down. That means when we actually go to trial, 90% of the time that person is convicted, which is the highest conviction rate we've ever had in the Marion County prosecutor's office. And I'd love to tell you it's because I'm the greatest prosecutor in the world, but the reason we're able to do that is because we're getting tremendous cooperation from the community, and we're also using forensic evidence. So oftentimes we're able to link cases together because we'll find shell casings on the scene, then we recover a gun. Sometime later, we're able to match those shell casings to the gun, and we're able to solve cases, and we're able to prosecute cases. And we've been incredibly successful doing it. And so because we were so successful and we were making really a dent in violent crime, the Indiana legislature, of course, said, we don't want you to do that anymore. And they gave us permitless carry. And the reason why that is such a challenge for us is all those guns that we were previously able to take off the street and test to these homicide cases, to these non-fatal shootings, we don't have the ability to do that anymore because of permitless carry. And what permitless carry says is anybody who wants to walk around with a gun, whether it's an AK-47 or a Glock handgun, can do so without a permit. There's no permit requirement. And so it changes the game in terms of what that interaction is going to look like between the community and law enforcement. And when you go to the grocery store, there's probably a good chance you're going to see more people armed showing their firearms. This is bad for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's going to heighten the tension between any conflict that exists. Because everybody's going to know, hey, that other person's armed. If I don't pull first, maybe they'll shoot me, which could lead to more violence. I think the other part that I hope everybody is aware of is that not only are we going to have more people armed, but people are being armed with more deadly weapons. For those of you who don't know, and this is especially true amongst our young people, is they are doing something what's called a Glock switch on their handguns. And what this does is it turns a semi-automatic handgun into an automatic handgun. And so why is that a big issue, or why is that an important thing? Usually you have to pull the trigger each time to fire a shot. Now you just hold the trigger back and it's just bullet after bullet after bullet. I've seen videos where people are getting 30 shots off in a matter of seconds. Why is that concerning to our community? Because the people who have these firearms, the people who have these guns are young people. They are young people, and so we have people on the street who are armed with more dangerous weapons than ever. And just as I think we have an IMPD officer, he's not walking around with an automatic weapon. He's got a semi-automatic pistol. So that means the people that he is theoretically confronting have a more dangerous weapon than what he has on his person right now. This is a real challenge for us in our community. And again, when we had the ability to take those handguns off the street because we had a permit requirement, we just had to look it up, hey, do you have a handgun or not? We were in a much better position to enforce those laws and make our streets safer. But we have to play the hand that we were dealt by the legislature. And so we're not gonna have those forensic leads. So the most important relationship we have is the relationship with the community. The relationship we have with everybody in this room. And as I told Kim, I love being in this room because these are the people in the community who are actually doing the work.
Amen.
And so when we're in those rooms and when we're having these conversations, our ability to solve cases, our ability to prosecute cases is totally dependent upon the community now because this forensic tool is taken away. So it's really important that we do everything in our power to make sure that we are sending a message to the community that we care and that we want to make a difference. And one of the most successful things that we do is we do a driver's license reinstatement program and we help people get felonies taken off their record. The reason I work so hard on getting people's driver's licenses reinstated, there's 950,000 people in Marion County. How many people do you think's driver's license is suspended in Marion County right now? Number? You got a number? What do you think? What's the number? 900? 200,000. 200,000. What do you think? It's actually 100,000 people. That means there's 100,000 people driving on our roads right now, but here's the problem, here's the challenge. Of that 100,000 people who have their driver's license suspended, the overwhelming majority of them is because they're poor. They got issued a ticket and they couldn't afford to pay that ticket and their license is automatically suspended. I'm not talking about the people who are driving 150 miles an hour up and down 38th Street. That's not the folks I'm talking about. Those people pose a risk to public safety. But I'm talking about the person who maybe failed to signal or the person who didn't come to a complete stop. And when they get pulled over and when they have to deal with that ticket and they don't have the $150 to pay that ticket, we haven't made our community safer or more fair by taking away that person's driver's license. So here's my deal with the community. I'm gonna reinstate your driver's license. And I'm gonna waive those fees because I want you to spend that money on your kids. I want you to spend that money on insurance. I want you to spend that money on gas, which is where all our money's going. I wanna make sure you're doing those things because that's what's gonna make our community safer and better. I meet too many good people in our community who are being held back because they don't have a driver's license. Let's get those people driving on the street legally and on the road. The second thing I get tired of dealing with is people who have a felony conviction from way back when, and they're trying to turn their life around, but that felony is making them either unemployed, underemployed, or they can't find a place to live because no one wants to rent to a felon. And so what we try to do is we try to take those felonies off people's record. Because as one guy told me, he said, I was okay with doing the time, I just didn't know it was gonna be a life sentence. Because that conviction has followed me around everywhere. And we need to stop that insanity. And so we want to take these programs to the community. So if you know someone with a driver's license issue, if you know someone with a child support issue, if you know someone who's got a prior felony in their background and they're looking for help, July the 20th, at the Reset Center, correct? On the east side, we're coming to the east side, we're taking this to the people. We will help you get your driver's license reinstated. We will help you get those felonies taken off your record at absolutely no cost to anybody. Because the most important thing we need to do right now is send a message to the community that we care and that we're here to help. And when I look across this room and I look at everybody in this room, we're all here for the same reason. We want to make our community a better place. We want to make our community a safe place, but we want to make sure our community is a fair place. And we want to work with each and every single one of you to achieve that reality. So, my good friend Jennifer and Lindsay will have all the information. If you want to sign people up beforehand, we appreciate that so we can pull their criminal history, so we can pull their B&B. And we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help these individuals, to get them signed up and ready to go. But that's my commitment from the Marion County Prosecutor's Office to the room full of doers. This is what we are trying to do to help build that trust in the community. Because we need the community now more than ever to solve our issues and to solve our problems. And so I'm not sure how long I was supposed to talk, but I'm always happy to take questions if anybody has any questions. Yes, ma'am.
Where you said you're going to be located at the Reset Center or the Reset Center? Where is that? On Post Road.
It's on Post Road. Give us the address, Joy.
1 second. And I will make sure to get all the information to Kim so that she can email it out and get it to everyone. I have that at 4330 North Post Road.
Okay, yeah, I know where that is.
Is this a one-time event or is it expected to be recurring?
We got a question on the floor.
Is this a one-time event or expected to be reoccurring? And can we get people expunged their records or help them with their driver's license outside of this one event?
Yeah, so we do this once a month. One of the things that I like to do, because of COVID, we were doing it virtually. This one's going to be in person with the people. And so I think it's really important that we see each other, we talk to each other, we figure out what we can do to help. Because a lot of times people have other issues that maybe we can help with. So with this, we do them once a month. But the big one, when we're really gearing up, we're going to have a bunch of attorneys there volunteering to help out. It's going to be July 20th at the Reset Center.
What time? Yeah.
We're starting at 8 a.m., aren't we? We're starting at 8 a.m. and we'll go till you guys tell us it's time to go home. Yep. Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir.
It may be too late for this session, but what can be done to repeal the gun law?
Man, we got our senator right here. He's the voice of reason in the State House. I think we need to continue to have this conversation with our legislators and know just what a terrible impact this is going to have on Marion County. This is going to increase retaliatory violence. This is going to make it harder for us to solve cases. This is going to make it more difficult for us to get these Glock switches, cases, guns off our streets. And we need to continue to have that conversation with legislators. Senator Ford was fighting a good fight on this, and he could probably tell you more about that. But he was a very strong proponent of it, but we need more people like Senator Ford to make sure that we're making common sense decisions that hopefully keep people in Marion County safe.
Prosecutor Mears, with respect to the youth and the guns, can you explain how they're going to be handled as far as prosecution is concerned, and then also how it's going to interface with the feds?
So if you are less than 18 years of age, you're still not allowed to have a gun. You should. So if you're walking around and you're less than 18 years of age, it's still dangerous possession of a firearm. That's still a charge that can be filed in juvenile court. If you are 18, it's game on. And that person's free to walk around with that firearm. Here's the challenge with young people in particular, is when you're dealing with someone who's 18, guess what happens when they're 18? They've just come out of juvenile, now they're adults. None of these 18-year-olds have criminal histories because they just turned 18. And because they don't have those prior felonies, there is nothing that anybody can do to prevent them from walking around town strapped and loaded when they're walking up and down, Keystone or 38th Street or the Canal or every place in between. And so that's really the challenge that we have, is we've really taken law enforcement's ability to get those guns off the street and hopefully have peaceful encounters with those folks when they're out in our community.
And furthermore, when they are arrested, if they were a juvenile and got a felony charge with a gun, and then they're over 18 and charged, and then the feds step in, then what happens to them when that happens? Please explain that.
So the felonies, the feds can only take the case if the person has a prior felony. So the person has to have a prior felony, and then you're felon in possession of a firearm, and the feds have mandatory minimums. And so on a federal offense on something like that, I think the mandatory minimum is 5 years. And so the time gets real serious real quick.
And you go to Florence, Kentucky, right?
If you're lucky. You might go to Colorado, you might go to North Dakota.
Right. And grandma and grandpa can't visit you, right?
Right. Yeah. Or put money on your books.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do about them clips this law?
So Senator Ford and I have been fighting against it, because that's the problem that we see. That's the problem we have with these Glock switches. So you see people with the extended magazines. So instead of having 15, now they have 30 or 45 shots, and then they can fire it as an automatic weapon. They just hold down the trigger and they get off 30 shots in 5 seconds. Senator Ford and I have both been advocating for common sense gun laws that say we don't need those. Those need to be illegal. And I'll let him talk more about that challenge.
Do you have any stay safe tips for us in light of all of this?
In terms of gun safety?
In terms of gun safety.
So one of the things that we're working on is we're putting together a program, it'll probably be a class about gun safety. In terms of if you have a gun, how do you store it? How do you inspect that firearm? How can you keep it safe so kids don't have access to it? And more importantly, also to make sure that the firearms aren't stolen. One of the things that we're concerned about is about so many firearms being out and available in the public. People are going to leave them in cars. Are they going to lock their car? Maybe, maybe not. Are people going to steal those firearms and then they become involved in crimes? And so the people who have guns, it's really incredible now. It's more important now than ever that those individuals not only responsibly use those firearms, but store those firearms and care for those firearms so they don't get into the wrong hands. And our concern is because they're going to be so readily available and people are going to be so emboldened to carry them around everywhere, we're going to see an increase in thefts, and it's going to get into the hands of young people.
Okay, I understand, but what I was talking about is like going to the store or anything like that. I mean, if we see a confrontation and we need to walk away, run away, get away, quick. I mean, what can you say to us?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, number one, we need, as a community and as a group, we need to make sure that we're working with young people in particular on conflict resolution. And, it used to be, when we talk about homicide cases, we used to have three major categories. We used to have domestic cases, we used to have drug-related cases, and we used to have robbery gone bad. Now our largest case area and the highest growing area is disturbances, disputes, meaning that people are getting into simple arguments, simple disagreements, and it's turning violent. And that's where we're seeing this huge increase. And so one of the things that you try to do is help people resolve these situations without someone getting shot. The problem that we are seeing is the disputes are becoming more and more trivial. It's literally people running into someone in a restaurant and they get into an argument and someone ends up getting shot. It's fighting over parking spots. People are fighting over really dumb things. But because they've got that, it used to be liquid courage, now they got that courage on their hip. We're seeing this escalation, which is why we totally think this is a terrible law. That's only going to make our community unsafe. But what we have to do as a community, and again, I'm in a room full of doers, is we have to emphasize that message of conflict resolution, and it's not worth it. It's not worth it. If you get into that dispute in the parking lot, don't pull out your firearm. That's not going to help. That's not going to make anything better. Same thing if you're in a gas station or a restaurant and those disputes arise. But that's what we're seeing more and more, and our concern is we're going to see that number continue to increase because everybody's going to be walking around with a firearm.
Can you guys kind of push the see something, say something? Like, even if advertising on the news, if you see it, it's always good not to say something, because sometimes these arguments escalate. And when you see two people having a confrontation, if they call the police and they get there before the guns are drawn, it could save lives.
Absolutely. We had a situation in a grocery store the other day where a woman called the police. So there's a guy in there, double barrel, had two guns on each side of his hip, was acting kind of erratically. Woman called the police. There's an interaction with law enforcement. Fortunately, we were able to seize those firearms. That's a perfect example of what you're talking about, where someone saw something, it just didn't seem right, and that woman was very thoughtful, called the police, and really put us in a better position than we otherwise would have been in. You're 100% correct.
What's the options for the driver's license reinstatement for those who don't have transportation?
So we do them virtually as well. So if they can't make it to the in-person one, we'll do them virtually, and so you can get on our virtual list, and then we'll have attorneys work with them, and we can do it either over Zoom if they don't have Zoom or they don't have access to it. As long as they have a phone, we'll be able to get it done. And so there's a virtual option, and then you can do it in person as well.
3 areas if you could. I know some people here are familiar with it, but 3 areas if you could that could parlay into the open carry on July 1. The stand your ground defense, the red flag law, as well as do we have open warrants or no-knock warrants in Marion County?
So we don't do no-knock warrants in Marion County anymore. That was an agreement that the prosecutor's office and law enforcement came together on, just because it put a lot of people in danger, both the people who were inside the home as well as the law enforcement officers. So we came to an agreement that that's probably not the way to go. I think most people are familiar with the Breonna Taylor case that happened in Louisville, which is an example of a no-knock warrant going poorly, to say the least. And so we all came together and said, this is a policy that doesn't make sense. Let's not do no-knock warrants. The stand your ground law is a really challenging law for violence in our community, because what that says here in the state of Indiana is you have no duty to retreat. So what that means is me as a prosecutor, I can't say, well, that person could have walked out the door, they could have left, they didn't have to be involved in that argument. What the law says in Indiana is you are under no obligation to avoid a confrontation. You are under no obligation to walk away from a confrontation. You can stand your ground, stand right there, and go mano to mano with someone, which incentivizes bad behavior, which incentivizes confrontation. And so when you couple that with everybody being armed, it would be nice if we could say, there's the door, walk right out, but our law doesn't necessarily encourage that. And so that's one of the real challenges that we have here in Marion County. We talked a little bit about the permitless carry. You know, one of the great things about the permitless carry was there was just a background check on someone. Do you have any prior felony convictions? Do you have a history of substance use offenses? Do you have any mental health issues that would say, hey, we don't want this person to have a gun? All that went away. All that's gone. And now someone can just walk around with a gun because they're 18 years of age and they're in Indiana.
Isn't that gonna cause a lot more violence?
That's certainly what Senator Ford and I think. You know, what she just said is that going to cause more violence? And,
Yeah, you letting them walk around?
we certainly think so. And we certainly think it's not a good use of public policy.
So, what's that website that they can use? They can get on?
So it's just indy.gov/MCPO.
You said MCPO?
Yep, MCPO, which stands for Marion County Prosecutor's Office. And you'll see our different programs that people are interested in. They can sign up there. The other thing that you can always do is info@MCPO@indy.gov. So the email address, if you just go mcpo@indy.gov, if you give name and contact information, we'll follow up with you. And by we, I mean Jennifer and Lindsay.
Is it too late to try to stop the gun reform law? Or like, y'all can't do a petition and people don't?
No, I wish we could. July 1st, it's coming whether we like it or not.
And it's everywhere, not just here, right?
Yeah, yes. I love you. And if you couldn't hear her on TV, she just said, I'm trying to figure out who thought that was a good idea. It was nobody in this room, and Senator Ford maybe can tell you who thought that was a good idea.
Well, obviously the governor thought it was a good idea, because he signed it, right?
Yes, he did.
I hope all you voters hear that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
This one thing I want to interject. The other side of the gun issue is how much money is made. There's billions of dollars being made and our children are down in the streets.
Yeah.
You know, right? So, I mean, I hope there's a light in this.
You know, one thing that Prosecutor Mears brought out that I've witnessed myself like 2 weeks ago, and I said, wow, this isn't even July 1. But I was in the gas station, and there was a man who did not look, he was anyway a police officer, dressed in civilian clothes, had the shaggy hair. I doubt the police department would allow that unless he was undercover.
Undercover, yes.
Right. And so as I'm just standing in line, there's this guy with his shirt tucked in with pistols on both sides. And the thing that flashed in my mind about July 1, and I'm so glad that you were coming, because this is this part of this piece that you've been going throughout the community, to let people be aware. Because per the stand your ground, if you heard the prosecutor's definition of that, it merely just, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it merely constitutes if a person has a weapon and is fully exposed, and if some way that person feels threatened and decides to use that pistol, that's when the stand your ground defense becomes their, shall we say, alibi. And so, if you just think of that picture as you're going to the grocery store with your children, grandchildren, if you're just going to get gas, if everybody walks around with pistols on their arms, in their purse, or whatever, and you got to think about the mentality of those that are also the weapon carriers. You know, are they going through a period of anxiety, depression? Are they going through a mental health crisis? And not having that filter in terms of who is his access not allowed to, I mean, not allowed to spread in public, that's a very deep statement, and that's a very profound incident. You could be having dinner with your family at a restaurant. I mean, not too long ago, Chuck E. Cheese incident happened. You know, a beef, and it was just a blessing that more children and adults did not get injured in that incident, but it was over a beef, and they didn't care the children were there, or other adults was there. So please, listen to what the prosecutor is saying. Share this information with your neighbors, your loved ones, your family. This is a different time that we're about to come into July. Yep.
So when the earliest can this law be repealed?
We got the great senator speaking next, so I'll defer to him on that.
Okay, how much mass shooting is this gun law going to do? Because the way it sounds like it's going to be an awful lot of it.
And that's one of my concerns is this going to beget more violence? And is it going to beget more significant violence? My concern between the Glock switches and the extended magazines and everybody being able to carry a gun is that seems like a recipe for disaster. And so, but again, the only people that we have to rely on right now is community. Like the legislature's turned their backs on us. And so we need to invest in our community relationships, in our community partnerships, because the only solution that we're going to have to these problems is coming from us. It's not coming from Market Street. It's not coming from the legislature. It's going to come from us banding together and helping each other out.
One last question, Chris.
Say, for example, historically, the time to no gun, so people still coming with a gun. What is something they can do?
Well, so the Indiana legislature wants you to be able to take a gun pretty much everywhere, but a school and the state house. And so, I mean, I think that's one of the things that businesses, private businesses, are going to try to work through is how can we prevent people from bringing in guns and not creating confrontations. Kim, I can't thank you enough for allowing me to come in here and talk. This is one of the best groups in the entire city because when I see the folks in this room around, you guys are doing the work. And, you know, I can't, you know, I spend all day with people who are doing the damn thing, so thank you. We also get the best lunch here, so.
And let me also say, Prosecutor Mears, we thank you for being a prosecutor and an elected official that is engaged and comes out in the community. Thank you. So before we go to our next speaker, my state senator, Jake Ford, I want to give you a little background about this gentleman. Since he's been in office, he has hit the floor running. He has literally hit the floor running. And actually, Senator Ford was supposed to be on the agenda last month, but we went back and forth, and so he said he'd come this month. There's projects I've done with this gentleman where from his heart and his own pocketbook, one Easter, gave baskets all out to seniors in the community. Now, you don't get a lot of elected officials that will take money out of their own pocket and have a heart to say, I care about my seniors. It just happened to be seniors in that event, but Senator Ford is all over the place, caring about people, advocating in all kind of areas beyond his legislative duties. And so my personal opinion, of course, is that we're very blessed to have a legislator, as Prosecutor Mears pointed out. He's been very active in some things legislatively in the State House. Some of those he was able to win, and some of those he was not. But he's still in there in the fight. And so I just want to say it's a pleasure, and thank you again, Senator Ford, for being with us today, being like another elected official coming out in the community to be with the people, whether they're your constituents directly or not. Real quick, we've got, on that table back there, there's resources. So if you brought some today, if you're looking for some, please peruse the table and feel free to take whatever information that you like. And to the floor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Boyd, for the invitation, Pastor. Thank you for hosting us. Another round for our prosecutor, please. I was so proud to support you and continue to support you, and you're doing such amazing work for our county. It's really interesting that, before we got started in the legislative session, you might recall that, the Marion County delegation, senators, sat down and said, crime is so bad, right? And then all of a sudden, with that same breath, they also passed the permitless carry, which is only going to further exacerbate the situation. And so you're just wondering and shaking your head, where do we go from here? And to your point, where do we go from here? July 1st is right upon us. I will share with you that the governor has decided to call us back into a special session. We are going to give back $1 billion to citizens of our state, which is a good thing, but we also have other issues that we need to tackle. The permitless carry bill, the fact that 19 kids were killed in Texas and not a peep from our General Assembly. Of course, I've been very outward about my anger and frustration, but I also want you to know that I am one of 150 members of our General Assembly. So it's not that I can take action by myself. I have to get 149 other colleagues to think the way that I do, and sometimes that's very difficult to do. So before I get started with my remarks, I would like to take just a personal point of privilege, if I may. Is that okay? All right. This legislative session wanted to really recognize someone really special to me. You said very kind things to me, but I want to give my kind thanks back to you. Anytime I am stuck between a rock and a hard place, I call Miss Kim Boyd. I like to call her to bounce ideas off of her, to get some advice. It's always sage advice. And so with that, I'd like to honor you today. And I knew she would be mad at me, that's why I didn't tell her. But I was going to do it anyway because she works so hard for our community, and we need to recognize and really appreciate those people. This is Senate Resolution 29. While you're making your way up, I'll go ahead and read it. It's Senate Resolution 29 and the Senate Resolution honoring Kim Boyd for her contributions to the city of Indianapolis. Whereas Kim Boyd is the founder and president of Helping Others Prosper Economically Hope Team, which focuses on assisting the underserved community in Indianapolis. Whereas Kim Boyd is a lifelong Hoosier, born and raised in Gary, living in Indianapolis since the 1970s. Whereas after becoming a single mother, Kim Boyd understood the economic difficulties many Hoosiers faced, sparking her passion to aid others in need. Whereas Kim Boyd's involvement in the community began with neighborhood groups and other efforts that were involved with aiding youth, improving the quality of life, and understanding the effect of politics on the community. Whereas Kim Boyd's professional career, both with Duke Energy and the Government and Legislative Affairs Political Action Committee, continued her involvement in the community. Whereas Kim Boyd has also worked for Goodwill Industries, bringing the Nurse Family Partnership Program based out of Denver, Colorado to Indiana to address the rising infant mortality rates in Indiana, and servicing at-risk, first-time economically challenged mothers. To aid the homeless in the community, Kim Boyd worked at the Homeless Initiative Program and the Threshold Project, eventually developing a VA grant and a per diem program that housed homeless veterans for 2 years. Whereas Kim Boyd worked for the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Indiana and conducted lever-pulling meetings with U.S. Attorney's Office, DEA, FBI, local law enforcement, and the Marion County Prosecutor's Office that sought to address the concern of individuals engaged in high-profile violent offenses, including the use of handguns. These experiences resulted in Kim Boyd founding the HOPE team to help those in need to navigate resources and ultimately develop a better quality of life. Whereas, two more whereases, Kim Boyd has had numerous recognitions and awards for her services, such being named, listen to this folks, a 2021 George H.W. Bush Points of Light honoree, a national award, being recognized in a special resolution by the City of Indianapolis, earning the 2013 Ford Motor Company Unsung Hero Award, the 2013 Indianapolis Neighborhood Resource Center Citizens Award, the 2012 YMCA Triangle Award for Spirit, Mind and Body, and the 2006 Indiana Commission for Women's Spirit of Hope Sports Fair Award. And the work of Kim Boyd has greatly contributed to the involvement of the city of Indianapolis, focusing and aiding in those enhancing the quality of life in the city. Therefore, be it resolved by the Senate of the General Assembly of the State of Indiana, Section 1, that the Senate honors Kim Boyd for her contributions to the city of Indianapolis, and 2, that as Secretary of the Senate is hereby directed to transmit a copy of this resolution to Kim Boyd. Please give it up.
Everybody knows me now. I really don't like this stuff like this. I just do what I do and keep it going. I never talk about it. I just do it. And, you know, depending on the conversation, JD, because, you know, I'm going to tell it like it is.
That's right.
I'm going to tell her how I feel. No animosity, no hate, but just keeping it real because life is too short. And some people might argue with that or take offense or whatever, but anybody that truly knows my heart knows that I'm going to give it to you real. I'm going to call it out, but all the while I'm going to help you and love up on you.
That's right.
So, thank you, JD. Enough of this and go to
So the one thing I've always known, and maybe the prosecutor can agree with me, is that we get into these political circles and we know of each other, but we don't necessarily know each other. And I didn't know all of the stuff that Kim had worked on in the community. And so, and I think that just kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier in our conversation, and that is that we have to get to know each other. I think a lot of the violence that we're seeing is because it's very easy for us to pop off at each other. It's very easy for us. As an elected official, I get what I call my fan mail. It's people who are just on the other side of the computer screen, just, you just, you know, and it's like they don't understand and realize that we're human beings too, and that we have to read it. And I read every single piece that comes to me because I need to know exactly what we're up against. So, but I also want to underscore something that the prosecutor said, and that's that conflict resolution skills. Folks, in your General Assembly, we wasted a whole legislative session talking about critical race theory. It's not being taught in our schools, but we wasted a whole session talking about critical race theory when we could have been talking about how are we going to enhance conflict resolution skills? How are we going to enhance social and emotional learning? That's what our educators call it in our schools today. And I actually, I want to not just come here and say things. I want to come here and bring receipts. And so I wanted to do that for you because I want you to see what we're up against. And so I'll pass a few things around, and then we'll get to talking about the permanent care because we had such a great conversation. But this is the IBJ article, and this is Dave Ricks, who serves as the Lilly CEO. Okay, did anybody see or hear his comments recently? Okay, Grant, the CEO, Lilly, right down the street, is saying, Indiana, you must do better. The education attainment in your state, our state, he lives here too, is not good. He went on to say that Indiana needs to do more than boast about low cost of living. Boast more about business-friendly climates and transportation network. So yeah, we might be doing well in those categories, but what he is saying is you need to do more in education, and you need to do more to improve the quality of life in our state. And so I will give you a copy. And then you can take one if you'd like to read it about what he had to say. But I think it's so important that I share that with you because this isn't just J.D. Ford or some other, this is Lilly, one of the largest employers of our state that are saying this very important information. Okay. The other thing I wanted to do quickly is just share with you some of the stuff that I've been working on in the General Assembly. I was very proud to cast that no vote on the permitless carry bill. And we'll talk a little bit more about the legislative procedure, about how I thought my colleagues on the other side of the aisle really abused that legislative procedure, but I've been advocating for public safety. I want to make sure that our schools get the right amount of money so that way they can operate and keep the kids in schools. I've been working really hard on substance abuse and mental health, supporting businesses' initiatives. We know that our small businesses are the backbone of our communities. Improving our workforce, going exactly to what Dave Ricks just said, advocating for our children and our families, improving elections and voting access. So I want you to know that we're seeing a lot of stuff play out at the national level about the January 6th committee, but I want you to know that there are people right here in our state, in your General Assembly, that believe in the big lie, that believe that the election was stolen in 2020. And so I've been working really hard to stand up to that and to push back. I've also been recently appointed to the Township Task Force, as well as the Electrical Vehicle Commission and the Behavioral Health Commission. And so I will go ahead and pass around some of that as well. Feel free to take one if you'd like. If not, just pass it to the next neighbor. Okay. So talking a little bit about the permitless carry bill, we are going back into a special session. The date hasn't been determined yet. And so, but the one thing that I ask you to do is to please reach out to your state representative and to your state senator. You may say, well, you know what? I don't know who that person is, and that's okay. I understand that. We're all busy, we all have lives, but I really do need you to walk away with some homework today and to really reach out to that person. Because here's what my colleagues on the other side of the aisle say. Well, nobody contacted us. Nobody expressed anything to me. And so please do your part. If we all sat in this room and said, my voice or my vote doesn't matter, then of course it doesn't matter, because we feel that way. We've bought into that apathy. But if we said, you know what, collectively, we are stronger together, then we can reach out. So please go to iga.in.gov, iga.in.gov. That's the General Assembly's website. On the left-hand corner, you will see an information tab. You're going to click that. A drop-down menu will pop, and then you're going to click Find Your Legislator. Then a form will pop up, and it's simply to put your address in, and it'll spit out who is representing you in the federal level. So in this case, it would be U.S. Senators Mike Braun and Todd Young and Andre Carson in the House of Representatives. And then it'll populate who your state senator is and who your state representative is. And it's so important for you to contact them and share with them how you feel. So please do that. And ask them to call on the governor to address these issues. Because here's the deal, is that we are a part-time legislature, and we are actually adjourned for the year. Let me say that again. We are adjourned for the year. So we put all of our work into 2.5 months, because we got out early this year. We got out like March 9th. So we were there for 2 months. We put all of our work into 2 months, and we are done for the year. So per the Constitution, the Indiana Constitution, only the governor can call us back into a special session. So when the Uvalde, Texas situation happened, our caucus, the Senate Democratic Caucus, wrote a letter to Governor Holcomb and said, please call us back into special session to deal with the gun issue, the gun violence in our state, and also the permitless carry. Let's see here. The other thing that's important to know is that there are only 11 Senate Democratic members in the state Senate and 39 Republicans for a total of 50. Over in the House, it's just as equally as bad. It's 70 House Republicans and 30 House Democrats. And so what does that mean? That means a supermajority. That means that I don't have to show up and do anything or say anything because they have the votes to do everything for us, right? Somebody recently said to me, well, Senator Ford, why don't you just walk out? Why don't you and your colleagues just walk out? And I said, that's a great idea. But they'll just keep going. And that's what happened with the hate crimes bill in 2019, is that we all walked out as a kind of a show to our Republican colleagues because they had stripped out important people from that hate crimes bill, and we walked out, and you know what they did? They kept going, and they passed the bill anyway. So in order for us to really bring balance to the State House, we have got to have difficult conversations with our friends. And sometimes people say to me, well, I don't like to get political, but I think we're living in a very tumultuous time right now, where we don't have to be disrespectful. We can have civil conversations, but we should be political, because everything that we do is political. The potholes on the road coming in here, it's political, right? It's political. Everything that we do is political, from the potholes all the way to permitless carry, all the way to our state budget. The permitless carry bill, it originally started as House Bill 1077. And then it passed out of the House of Representatives, it came over to the Senate, and it was like Senate Bill 209. And we had a lengthy, long hearing where our superintendent of police, Doug Carter, came and said that please do not pass this piece of legislation. This permitless carry is going to make my officers it's going to be more difficult for them to do their job. And other law enforcement officials came and testified. And then Superintendent Carter said, you cannot say out of one mouth that you support police, and then on the other side, vote for this bill. But the most important thing that I think he said during that particular legislative hearing was, this is why the supermajority is bad. Now remember, I just mentioned 11 and 39 in the Senate, 70 and 30 in the House. And this is why the supermajority is bad. You have not a Democrat member, I'm assuming. This is the state police, the head of the state police, saying this is why the supermajority is bad. And it actually made the article for the Indianapolis Star. So again, bring in receipts. I just don't want you to think that I'm just up here making things up. So please take one of those and pass that down. But the permitless carry started as House Bill 1077, came to the Senate Bill 209, and ended up as 1296. And you might be thinking, well, why are all of those numbers important? Because what they were doing was that they were my colleagues on the other side of the aisle were shopping around different bills and different committees to get this rammed and jammed through the legislative process. And that is not why we're there. We have the legislative procedure and process for a reason, but in my opinion, I believe my colleagues used that process simply to push this through and get this done. Okay, any other questions on the permitless carry? Yes, sir.
Yes, how do you go about repealing this law? Will the people have to do it as a vote, or is the Congress or somebody going to have to step in and take control of this?
Yeah, that's a good question. And like I said, right now we are adjourned. And so there's nothing we can do as state representatives or state senators. The only thing that you can do as citizens is make your voice heard, and that is by contacting the governor's office. You can email him or call the office, and you will simply just say this: I am J.D. Ford. I live in the city of Indianapolis. I am upset about the permitless carry bill. I would like Governor Holcomb to call a special session to repeal this bill. And that's it. And then the staffer on the other side, it's likely going to be a young staffer. He's probably going to take your information and say, thank you for sharing your thoughts. I'll pass it along to the governor. And then he'll just simply hang up. Let me get that for you. So Ms. Kim is going to look it up for me as we keep going, and I'll share that for you. But yes, that is the one thing people say to me all the time. What can we do? That's the first thing that I'll share with you, is making sure that you contact the governor's office to make your voice heard on that issue. Yes, sir.
At this time, you said you don't know when the general special session is going to be held.
The only indication that we have heard is that it's going to be sometime at the end of June. We do not have a specific date. So I would also encourage you to, when you go to the website and you find out who your state senator is and your state representative, all of my colleagues, thank you so much, all of my colleagues have a social media account. So if you are not following your state representative or your state senator, please do. we put out information all the time, resources, workshops in the district, things of that nature. And so we'll be really kind of pushing that information out a bunch. Let me give the telephone number real quick. Okay, so this is the telephone number to Governor Holcomb, his office, not his personal sign. 317-232-4567. Let me give that number again, 317-232-4567. Yes, sir.
Lastly, so it's public information as to the representatives who supported this bill, correct?
That's right.
And where will we find those names?
Good question. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to the General Assembly's website, so that iga.in.gov, okay? On the top right-hand corner, you're going to click Find a Bill, okay? And then you're going to input 1296, okay? On the left-hand side, it's going to say Senate roll call or House roll call. You're going to click that, okay? Then you'll see what senators voted for this and what House members voted for this. So in the Senate, when we take votes, it's called a roll call vote. And what that basically means is that we are on the record voting for or against a specific piece of legislation.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Sure.
So with the call, could you give me, if we were to activate this movement?
Yes.
How many calls would it take to get something shooted? Like, give me a number of
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because,
does 1,000 do this? Does 50,000 do this? What shit is this?
the only reason why I'm hesitating to give you a specific number is because I had a colleague share with me on the other side of the aisle, share with me once, JD, it don't matter how many phone calls you tell people to call my office, because I'm not going to do it. And the reason for that is because of gerrymandering. They're in a safe district. Now, granted, I will also kind of play devil's advocate. Democrats have safe Democrat districts as well. But in my opinion, this is why I fought so hard against gerrymandering, because when you have these safe districts, they don't got to work for the people. In my district, it could easily flip to the other side. And so that's why I'm in the community. That's why I let people know where I stand on things. And that's why I call people back when they call me. So I will share with you, I would say, start with 1,000, and if you can, keep it going. Because I don't want them to ever say, nobody reached out to me to tell me how bad this was.
So to activate, because you're in a room full of people that are activated.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
Several people here have access and activate several people. I guess what I'm questioning is, yes, I can activate people to do a lot of things, but if it's going to fall in their ears and it's a misuse of their time, while somebody heard the message, if you're not going to get anything shifted, then what is the other move? Do you have another solution?
I think at that point, it's making sure that people are knowing about this issue, making sure that people are registered to vote, and going back to what you just said, finding out who voted for this and who voted against it. If you live in a district where someone voted for this, I would highly encourage you to think about your morals and values and their morals and values, and does that jive? Does that align? If it doesn't, then don't vote for that person. I think the registering people to vote is so key because there's so much voter apathy in our state. We are 42nd in the nation in terms of voter turnout. Here in Marion County in the 2020 elections, people waited 6 hours to vote, right? Go up to Hamilton County, people literally waited 15, 20 minutes to vote, if that. Walk right in, walk right out. So, again, that's designed to be that way, right? And so that makes people feel like, well, I'm not going to go stand in 6 hours. I got to work, I got to do things. But the people have to do that to get their votes.
So then, just on that point, I won't
sure.
But the reason people were waiting 6 hours is because they closed several places to do the voting. So is that something that we can implement? Yes, I can ask. Again, I can activate a network. Please go out and do this. I can go myself.
Yeah.
I may be willing to sit 6 hours, but it's kind of stacked against me.
Yeah.
You shut down every place where you go.
Yeah.
So then the issue is not the 6 hour wait, it's bigger than that. So where do I go to fix that part?
Yeah, so going right back to the legislature, I mean, it all stems from, you know, the legislature. The legislature passed a bill that said that you have to have a unanimous vote on the elections board in order to open more sites. And if there's one Republican on that board, which there is in Marion County, he or she can be a holdout and say, I don't want you to do that.
So we don't have a fight, so then what, then, I guess I'm not sure what we can do.
As Senator Ford relaying the experiences of that election where people were standing in line for hours, yeah, several people were. Because I know the challenge that came about was that, if you remember, that was around the time during COVID, and the city gave I think it was like $2 million to hopefully make it an easier process, hence the mail-in voting and the ballots that some people never got, you know what I'm saying? And so they had to go stand in those lines because they were adamant. And I did ask the question, where did the money go? Because, and then I was told that, you know, the money was not only just for the primary, but for the general election as well. And like JD mentioned, I mean, there's like a 3-panel board, I think the election board, and it's a Republican, a Democrat, and right. So that's it. Now, beyond that, Connie, well, what's Connie? Yeah. But the Secretary of State, because during that particular election, you know, it was brought up about extending the time frame, like for early vote and stuff like that. And so then at that point, it gets deferred to the Secretary of State that can have the final say-so in terms of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but can have the final say-so over elections and whatnot. I would say as far as, and I feel your frustration, not only from people that wanted to vote, but had to stand in line to vote. Even when the seniors didn't know, they can cut ahead of the line, the young mothers with children, you know, they didn't have to stand out on those long lines like that. And so not only is there a registration, but there also should be an education of your rights when you go to a voting poll. The traveling board, they can help us sick and set in, and then to advocate for those things that we need to have, not only with the election board, but also with the Secretary of State, okay? Because that's where the buck stops when it comes to elections, correct me if I'm wrong. And so if there's any advocacy to be done, and then here again, I mean, like a lot of the elected officials, and then you take a city, township, or state, they do not come out in the community. And that's Democrat and Republican. They do not come out in the community like these elected officials have said today, which is why, you know, that's my sweet spot. Who are you to get paid by taxpayers who's not even return an email or a phone call? You have staff to do that. And just like with congressional staff, they get to decide if they want to pay their people more and hire less, or hire more and pay them less, or hire, you know, because of even the congressional office, they get to determine their staff and how they set it up in their budget. Okay? So there's things that you can do, and that's where the advocacy and these meetings have been so important, is to arm people up. When you get into these frustrations and these things that are going to change our community, don't stop your voice. Yeah. I told somebody one time, you know, hey, my voice is all I got, and they're not going to shut me up. You know, and there's power in numbers. So as he suggested, whoever your state senator, representative, city council person, township government, call them up and call them out, especially when it equates to the future of our city, the quality of life of our children, and the protection of our seniors. You have to call them out. So there's power in numbers, but there goes that food chain, and call them up and call them out.
So then, and we'll take this opportunity to speak to you on this, what I'm hearing in all this, I hear the easy button type of call. But what it sounds like to me, which I would love to speak to you about in real time, it sounds like a strategy needs to be put in place. This is not just to make a phone call there directly with to get you. It has to be much more of a strategic plan to get it. This is not just standing and yelling on the court and tell somebody something. So this is a different plan.
Yes, the power of the individual, and everybody in this room, as far as anybody watching this, never underestimate the power of your voice and can carry his weight. When it becomes a movement, you know, like for some of the issues that President Harris and Senator Ford talking about, like with this open carry, then you've got a movement coming. Because then you got a state legislature that says, hey, we're gonna pass this bill, we don't care what our policing agencies say, we don't care what the state police say, because they all testified and said they did not want it. They did not want it. And so then guess what? If you have a state legislature, and again, this is not a Democrat Republican, this is a quality of life issue, right? This is not a political issue of left versus right. So then you have a movement to take your safety and your public safety back. And so then it becomes a movement where you have a body of people, you know, that says no. And I'll tell you somebody else, the Indianapolis Star has been doing some articles on this open carry stuff. And that's another thing. Nobody likes to be, no, so go ahead. Nobody likes to be called out, okay? So everybody loves to be associated with a winner.
That's right.
But the hard conversations with people, I mean, like, my senator and I have not always agreed, you know, but it's never been personal. It's always about people being empowered, people being engaged, and people being a part of that process. And if any elected official, I don't care if it's Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Independent, if they refuse to answer a phone call to you and they're paid with taxpayer dollars, then they need to be accountable, held accountable, period.
I'm with you. I wasn't to change this. So what? So all right, I got you.
Yeah, because it is a movement, especially when you're talking about laws that want to take effect. He already said they're not coming back into session.
Right.
So then it's going to take the people, just like unfortunately what happened in Texas.
Yeah.
It took the people to make those legislators in Texas come back to the table and talk about gun reform. You see what I'm saying? So regardless of what the time frames are legislatively, township government, elections of city, or whatever, the power of the people becoming a movement in unity together is quite undeniable.
I do have one question. You kind of addressed it a little bit, but you know, you talked about the challenges of being it being a supermajority. I guess my question is, it seems as though many of the initiatives that are being passed don't have the best interests of the people who live here.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question is, how much power do we have here if we're not the ones voting as people?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, you know, what I will say to you is that the Senate Democratic delegation is working hard and putting initiatives forward to lift up the people, to do the work of the people. I do feel like my colleagues on the other side of the aisle they have a totally different vision for Indiana. But yet they are the ones that are in the majority, supermajority. And so they're the ones that, you know, tell us what bills get onto the docket. They're the ones that tell us, you know, whether that bill is going to move or not. You know, we're putting bills forward, you know, to pass, you know, marijuana reform. We know that 8 out of 10 Hoosiers want some sort of reform, but again, we have a legislature that is not even wanting to have the debate on that, right? We've talked about increasing the minimum wage. It's still $7.25 in our state. You know, so when we're talking about, I know everyone's like, oh, but when we're talking about having people to afford a 2-bedroom, you know, apartment on $7.25, it's just not happening in our county, you know. And so, but yet we're the ones putting these proposals and initiatives forward, but they're blocked at every angle from our colleagues. And so going back to what you mentioned before, and I totally hear you, why do I want to send people and waste their time? But it's still an essential part of government for folks to reach out. And it really only does take maybe about 5 minutes of that to call or to email your legislator. But it has to happen because I also need the cover to go to my colleagues and say, over 1,000 people call my office on this issue. You know, does that answer your question a little bit? And the other thing I will say is change the people. Change the people. If we want our legislature to start listening to the people, then we've got to vote for people who are just not listening to us. right? Vote them out.
I didn't hear anything practical, to be honest. Like I said, the people who they serve,
Yeah.
a lot of them, they believe,
Yeah.
that critical race.
Jordan, I will be the first person to tell you that I am a senator. I'm not perfect. I don't have all the answers, and sometimes I'm scratching my head just like you are. When it comes to our General Assembly, there are things I've put forward. In fact, all of the bills that I filed this session, I thought were amazing bills for the people. Not a single one got a hearing. And so here I am thinking, well, what am I doing or not doing? That is, causing my colleagues, to not accept my proposals. But it's also a reality that they don't have to listen to my proposals. So I'll be the first to admit to you that I'm not perfect and I don't have all the answers. Did you have a question?
I did, yeah. You mentioned earlier that the election board thing requires a unanimous vote. To change that to a majority vote, would that require a bill in session?
Yes.
It would?
Yep.
So that would be something that would be possible?
Not right now, no, unless a bill would be filed or an amendment to a bill, an elections bill, moving in the General Assembly. Yeah.
One last question.
Yes, go for it.
I think if I was missing, you got to answer this, but it's
Okay.
broad and issue. I'm listening to you speak, and you made a statement of the people on the other side of the aisle have a different vision for Indiana.
Yes.
We feel it in some sort of way. The two things that there's an obvious, okay, we kind of have an idea, but what I'm hearing in all this as a boots on the ground person. So we have this permitless gun situation, which I knew was coming. I didn't think was really going to happen. I just think it was going to actually happen. But with that being said, when I'm, for lack of a better term, in the streets, and I'm looking at situations of violence, or I'm looking at situations of just life. When you are in a situation of lack and your basic resources are in question, and things are at a fever pitch,
Yes.
situations do arise. So then we insert fire for gasoline on this scenario.
Yeah.
So what is the vision that they have? I'm not asking for any lookers, I'm just actually curious because if I don't understand the enemy, I can't create a tactical, I'm lost at this point.
Yeah.
Because you're saying this is going to move anyway, so now I'm actually unclear on the vision there to the website. Who was the permitless bill here to protect? Because at this point, we're getting into a lawless land.
Yeah.
What fear bred this? Because if you're scared of the violence on this, you don't then inject an item that makes it open.
Yeah, I personally believe that the result of the permitless carry bill was the result of special interests at our state house. And what I mean by that is going back to what you just mentioned, is money. Money is the root of all of this, right? And specifically the NRA. Okay. And I'll give you one example, and then I do have to get going.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'll give you one example. My colleague, Senator Mark Speaks from Bloomington, on the anniversary of Parkland, got up and spoke for 6 minutes about gun violence in our state. And he said, I have just shared with you the statistics of gun violence. I have shared with you that it's a problem in our state. And he sat down. And he said, and I spoke for 6 minutes because that's how long it took first responders to get to the first student. No, 5 seconds later, another colleague, a Republican colleague, gets up, goes to the microphone, and says, how dare you demean the NRA? When you demean the NRA, you demean me. And sits down.
And he spoke about child's death.
So, I also want you to you don't have to share this out loud with me, but I do want you to think about how many of you reached out to your legislator this legislative session. So I'm gonna put some homework back on you. I think, why my colleagues are able to get away with so much is because they're over here saying, look at the shiny red objects, and over here, they're passing all these crazy bills, right? And so I'm still getting calls from my constituents that say, please vote for this bill, or please do not support this bill. And I have to write them back and say, we're done for the year. So I will definitely own some of this, what's going on in the General Assembly, but I also want to share with you that we need your help. When we're in session, things move so quick, and and I may not have all the answers for you, but we desperately need people to call our office and say, please vote for this, or please don't support this. I always tell people, even if you agree with me on certain issues. So for example, I was very adamant about not voting for the criminal scare bill. I told folks, please still call me, please still email me, that way you can give me the cover to then go back to my colleagues and say, look, I can't support this because of these emails or these phone calls. So the last thing I will just simply say, I passed out a memo from our legislative council, which is I serve on at the State House. And this is a memo of all the topics that we are going to be studying this summer in preparation for the next General Assembly session, starting in January of next year. Okay? And so there's some really good ones on here, even from my Democratic colleagues. Representative Porter got one on here, which is helping to study the funding formula for schools. My colleague Representative Pryor, Chair Pryor, got one on here about housing and how it's sometimes unfair in our state. So there's some really good stuff. There's also from Representative Summers talking about maternal mortality, so that's also a very good thing. And then the last thing I want to just mention is that we talked a little bit about marijuana reform earlier. Finally, we are broaching the subject on this topic. We're talking about decriminality of marijuana and a couple other things there. So please take a look at this. If there are topics that you have expertise in or you want to learn more about, please come down to the State House. Please testify. My favorite thing is not hearing from necessarily people that hold the Harvard credentials. My favorite thing is hearing how about bills that are going to affect everyday people. And that's what you all do in the community. So thank you again for...
Can you say a little bit more about Senator Pryor's bill?
Yes.
It has to do with property taxes and seniors.
That's right.
Just say a little bit more about that.
Yeah, let me find it on here.
It has to do with grandfathering the raising of taxes for homeowners as their communities are being gentrified or redeveloped, and property taxes goes up. So.
Yes, let me see if I can't try and find that. Okay, so on page 7, it says discrimination in housing appraisals. This is a letter from Miller, Pressel, and Pryor. This is the topic in regards to housing in our state. It's discrimination in housing appraisals. And this was a letter from Representative Miller, Pressel, and Pryor. So this is what we studied this summer. And I will also leave my business cards. So let me help you. If there are bills moving through the General Assembly, you want to testify, you want to come to the Capitol, please email me, and I'm happy to help you that way. And I'll leave that with Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Judge. The lobbyists, in this case, the NRA, was definitely able to advocate and put some money behind getting done what they wanted done legislatively. And so that's why I'm part of people that voice it so well. So with that, Geraldo, if you want to come up and give the monthly reporting for North District?
Yes, I have, just a couple of things. This is great.
You got a speaker on the floor.
This was great information. You know, this is amazing. This is probably the first time I see so much valuable input from officials in a community meeting. And I've been doing this for 10 years. So this is amazing. I wish this happened. I have the stats, the crime stats, citywide. We break it in two sections. Violent crime, property crime. We're actually in the all around. We're down half point, like half percentage, compared to the same week last year. When we talk about violent crime, we're even down in homicides. And these numbers, I tell everybody, you have to be very careful the way you look at them. Because even though it looks good, that is, we're trending down compared to last year. Last year was just terrible. We had a record-breaking 276 homicides. So we're really not doing good. We're doing better just because we couldn't do worse than we did last year. And that was, with all the tools we had on the table. We just heard, even from the prosecutor standpoint, they're expecting this to get worse. Now, another thing, when it's good to have information, these things, and dedication and knowing how things work. When you talk about law enforcement, there are like different steps. IMPD, the police department, we are just like the arm of law enforcement. So a law is broken and someone makes the call, police responds, apprehends the person or whatever, issue a ticket, a citation, or apprehend the person. Once we have the person, we immediately hand that person to the sheriff department, who actually takes care of the inmates, the jails, and all that. And they keep them on hold until these people, they have their court date. Now, right after that, we just enter all the paperwork, all the case number and everything of this individual to the sheriff department. We turn around and we go on working on the next thing. We have absolutely nothing to do with the outcome or what happens to this person right after. What happens is, prosecutors, they immediately receive the information from the officers, all the reports and everything, and then they decide if they will file charges or not on that case. You just heard the prosecutor, for them it's like a vital thing, that percentage of conviction. So this is a numbers game they play. They said 90% never been higher than that. That is amazing for them. What is happening is there are things that don't get prosecuted. So if they really don't see like a good reason for presenting all this evidence in court, because it's going to be just dismissed, they just don't file it. And then this person is going to court and it's going to come back into the community. No charges. Usually what we hear, because we, same as you guys, we're in the community. The police is what you see walking the streets. And then when you see, well, why is this guy back here? Police is not doing their job. No, when you actually read and just read the news or listen to the news. Well, this guy was apprehended, the scene shot 6 people. Right? Right. Now read the next paragraph. This guy has 13 entries. Well, that means IMPD apprehended that guy 13 times before this last time. But we have absolutely nothing to do with what happens after. So now, this is a process, and there's some logic, and there's legislation and everything ruling each one of the aspects. So it is important to know, like, what happens. You know, who is in charge of what, and as the senator said, just talk to them, because we have the voice, we put them there, just as he said, just tell them, this shouldn't be happening. You know, like, now that you're taking tools with this no permit, yeah, that's a less instrument we can use. And I just used that example last week. It said, same as, you know, you have your car breaks down. Then you take it to the mechanic. And then you tell, well, guess what? You can't use the air pressure gun anymore. Now you have to do it by hand. So you're taking from the whole law enforcement, all the judicial system, you're taking tools from them. So the result of the quality of the repair, of the actions, well, they're not going to be as good as if you got good legislation. So with this crime trending down, it's trending down now. So we'll see in the following months what the numbers say. For us, you know, numbers are it's just cold. They just come up. So we will see what's the impact of all this happening. And of course, there are some other peripheral things. Just last night we were talking about this. There's a broken window there. And the concept is, this is wrong. And I put it here. And I do nothing about it. Guess what? Someone else finds that this is wrong too, I'm just going to put it there because there's already something wrong. So there's going to be so much wrong altogether that is so hard to fix. So what we need to do is just take care of those little things because they're easier to take care of. But that's why community involvement is so important. Because as you know, police department, understaffed, legislation, everything is difficult, there are resources, there are budget, all that. So there's nobody taking care of this. There's nobody taking care of the little stuff. So traffic enforcement. Yeah, we have racing all day long. Well, police is not doing that, not doing anything about it. Have you seen the shootings? Have you seen the robberies? And yeah, when you hear, well, but they're going down. Yeah, because we were so bad last year that, yeah, we're going down. But they're still happening. This is still shooting every single day. So we need to take care of those. And every time you see a police officer in a corner writing tickets, it's the community as a whole with so many complaints that they have to take that resource out of something else, put it there, try to take care of it. Sir.
Hi, everybody. My name is Garrett Flood. I'm new, so I don't know if y'all familiar with me, but I got a question to something that you stated. You said us as a community, we should assist the police and be another extension and all of that. So my question is, I'm a former gang member myself. You said that if we turn over people, then we fall back and we don't got nothing to do with what the police is, the outcome. What kind of programs and procedures do you got in place to protect us as community people? Because we can easily go turn somebody into the police, but we got to deal with the cousins and the brothers and the family members, the repercussions for us standing up. So we can protect ourselves and try to protect ourselves, but the police need to protect us too and have some type of something in play for when people want to reach out and give information on something like that. So are there programs and procedures in place to protect people?
That's a magnificent question. There's two. One is my baby, which is Crime Watch. Crime Watch is just a community working together, networking, being able to communicate with each other. And when the community reacts, you can't single one person out, you know? Because they say, well, we receive, you know, a notification from this Crime Watch group or this organization. So it's very difficult to single one person out. But as Ms. Boyd said, the voice, that is the most powerful thing. With Crime Watch, what we do is just, we put those voices together. The other thing is Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers is an amazing system where you can report absolutely anything and it's completely anonymous. And the interesting thing is, there's a lot of legislation and a lot of things, and people fear, yeah, I call this number, I make a report, and then down the road, there's some attorney with some connections, and is able to get a police report, and they're gonna get my number, and then they're gonna get my name, and now I get involved in that. Well, Crime Stoppers figured that out, and what they did is, their server, where they receive all the tips, is in Canada. So it actually doesn't fall under the US legislation. So it is there. When you call, it's like a local phone call or a local message. It goes there. And then from there, gets redirected to law enforcement. But there's never a way that anybody will access that database or any kind of information from there. So it remains 100% anonymous. And you can, again, call and report whatever it is. There's an additional benefit. If any of the information you provide will lead to the arrest or a case being solved, you are eligible to up to $1,000 in a reward.
That's some questions, because then we need to go on to.
All right. So that was a great answer, and that's set more in play for people who are reporting crimes that are going on. So I think he was talking more about when a murder or something happens. People don't speak up on it from where we're from because of retaliation from family. So not calling, giving a tip, because when you're part of an investigation and you're giving information, we all know that you gotta almost take the stand. Or you have to give some sort of, what is that called? You gotta do a deposition. Or at least talk to somebody, your name's gonna be put. Or even the people who catch cases with other people and do a proffer. Do you know that a lot of them kids in prison, now that have told on their friends or told their story and did a proffer, they get tortured in prison.
Yep.
Like I know a little boy right now, he's like 17, he's in prison for 60 years on a murder case, but because he did a proffer, he gets tortured by his cellmate every morning.
Yep.
And he has no family to call. So he has nobody to help him. So I think that's more what he's talking about opposed to the telling the crime. A lot of people don't step up and speak on these murders and tell who's doing stuff because you're liable to snitch in the community, go to jail, because they're gonna get you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or go to the hood and you're liable to snitch, somebody's gonna kill you. So what type of programs, or can you put a program in place to help protect those people? I'm Amber, by the way.
Yeah, well, actually, those are like the programs. Now, the way this works is, when something happens in the community, usually you have the detectives there. They pass information, they knock on every single door. And they don't flag that door like, hey, this person told me something. They just knock, and then they knock on the next and the next and the next and the next. Why? Just to create that uniformity. So nobody can tell, oh, they spent time at that door. No, they're actually doing everything, and what they do is, here's my card. If you have anything, call me.
But once they do that, they want them to test. I've had a case like that where somebody shot at me, and they had the 911 call because the girl shot at me while we were on the phone. I was reporting her hitting my car. I literally, like, everything, they had their whole case built. It started on camera. They seen where she pulled the gun out on me, but I refused to come and testify. So no matter what evidence they had, if I didn't testify, the case was dismissed.
So, but the thing is, if from the beginning you said that you want to remain anonymous, that's your right. The problem with that, prosecutors hate that when someone says, I want to remain anonymous, because now they cannot use you to testify in front of a jury or anything. What happens is it puts more stress on the investigation side, and on the prosecutor's office building that case. So they need to really work hard to collect evidence because they know. But now they use that information as a lead information. So I can actually gather more evidence from other sources or anything because I know. The problem is, and this is nationwide, when it comes to property crime, about 52% of incidents, they go unreported. That means people, they just add money value to the things they report. They don't think about the crime that happened. So, well, someone took my lawnmower. It was an old lawnmower, and I don't see the police chasing anybody just to get an old lawnmower. So I'm not going through the hassle of reporting. We need to know, because now this person didn't report this person didn't report. What happens is, if everybody will report it, now we will have like a spike of incidents in this area. That means it's a group of people acting up, robbing people or stealing from people, and that will show up in the report, and the response will be, well, you will have more patrols, you will have like more activity from law enforcement there. But people actually, they decline and said, no. The sad part is on violent crime, where it's almost like 39% that goes unreported. That is terrible, because there is assault, aggravated assault, simple assault, sexual assaults, they go unreported. And they run a study on that, and the reason is the victims, they know the offenders, they're friends, family members or something, and again, either then they don't have the power or they don't have the voice to actually like do the case. So it's a terrible thing.
And again, we got 2 more monthly reports, and for time constraints, want to make sure that we hear from the congressman's office. If you want to answer that question, after we get through, just to be respectful of everybody's time.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just put these 2 flyers. We have Community Day coming July 7th. The information is on the table. And we also have the IMPD Teen Academy. This is excellent for kids. And we're still looking, there was about 16 kids we're still looking, for 12 to 14 years old. And it runs from June 27th to July 1st. So please check this out, and if you have a kid or if you know any kids that can benefit from this program, please pass the information on. This is free and it's great information. Thank you.
I thank everybody. Congressman Carson's office, and then Andrew will have you as the next one report.
It's gonna be tough calling.
I jumped in front of Anthony, but it's okay. He'll be all right. Hi, everyone. This is my first Hope meeting. You're used to seeing Andrea Scott, but she's on vacation. We told her she could do that every once in a while, I guess. So you get me today. This was such a great meeting. It's so good to see so many engaged faces. I won't take up too much of your time, but Washington, D.C. is busy right now, as I don't know if you kept up with the news this week. There was a televised hearing for January 6th. I watched only the second day of it. The first day I was very busy, but a lot going on, talking about that, the insurrection that happened, and the big lie. So we're waiting to see, what comes of that. Exciting news. As I came in, I heard Prosecutor Mears talking about gun control, and things are different at the federal level, the state level. States have a lot of rights, as you also heard Senator Ford speak. But last week, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Protecting Our Kids Act, which raises the age from 18 to 21, because you can buy guns but not cigarettes in a lot of states. So raising the age there, and yesterday there were news out of the Senate. So the House has passed legislation, like gun control legislation, 3 bills, I believe, but the Senate just kind of, sits on them. But yesterday, I believe there was a bipartisan agreement to move something forward. So, the congressman is very eager to see what that will look like, what changes might come with the legislation that the House passed, and then, go from there. It's going to be a big debate, I'm sure. And that's really about it. Those are like the two big things. If there's time for questions, I don't want to take up time, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Our office is always open. To either direct you to your state senators, or if there's something that we can help with on the federal level, always happy to do so. Yes, ma'am.
I do not know if this would be within your office, but I work with a lot of seniors, and in working with the seniors, I also work with daycare, shelters, schools, and so all of my seniors that coming to be part of the program have to have background checks. So once they get the background checks, this is a federal background check. All of these schools, the daycare, shelters, and places like that have to have a background check as well. I think it's a double sword when both our agency and the daycares have to pay for a background check, which will run about $70. So I'm sending 4 of my seniors to one daycare. I'm paying for 4 background checks, and so it's at daycare. Is that something that's from your office or something that you can check into why the federal, and I kind of look at it like the federal and the state getting together, saying, okay, we have to do it. The federal government says that we have to do it. But I think that once we do it, it should not have to be something that is passed down to our daycare.
Yeah, we can look into it. And I'm not sure which type of background checks. Some are more, they're deeper than others.
We have to have both. We have to do a state background check, and we have to do a federal one.
Yeah, so they're different, and that might be why. One of them is an FBI background check, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the fingerprint.
Yep.
So
yeah, and that might be why it's due. But I can leave my card with Kim, and then we can chat. I'm not sure if we would have direct, because we might have to talk to Senator Ford as well and see what the state might have to do with her. But we can figure it out.
Okay, great.
Yeah, at least get the information. Yeah.
It's a cost to me that the daycares shouldn't have to go through, or the schools, even the schools. They have to have their separate background check. And so that's sending my seniors twice within, say, a month to have the same thing done.
See, it's harder to go into a daycare than it is to buy a gun. Yeah. 2 background checks instead of none.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Yes, I hate to be the Grim Reaper, but we're still in a pandemic mode. Again, we're still encouraging everybody to get their vaccinations and their boosters. You can get 2 boosters, they're all out there on the market. You can go to your drugstore, call Marion County Public Health, and tell you where you can go and do that at. People are still being hospitalized. Matter of fact, hospitalizations have increased. Matter of fact, the virus is spreading, but if you're vaccinated, the effects of the virus are going to be less than if you're not vaccinated, okay? So we need to encourage people to get vaccination. Now, Marion County Public Health has designated Devery Webster. Her number is 317-221-3081. She's the COVID-19 outreach coordinator. She's willing to come to any organization, any social gathering, or any group that wants more information about vaccinations, testing, and she also can distribute free testing kits to those who would request those. Also, since I've got seniors here, I want to give you a couple more numbers. There's the number for housing. If you got any complaints about housing or anything, that number is 317-221-2150. That's if there's trash, high weeds and grass, et cetera, et cetera. You can call those numbers. Then also there's a number for seniors,
senior concerns, environmental issues or housing, whatever, and their number is 317-221-2155. And then there's the number for DIP, diabetes, and summer's gone, but that number is 221-2104 if you want to know more about diabetes. And if you just want to know about anything that I have listed that I have not mentioned or failed to mention, you can call the admin number, which is 317-221-2000, and they'll get you to the proper department. Now, again, getting back to the COVID issue, you should still wear your mask in public where you don't know if someone's vaccinated or not. You should also wash your hands, practice social distancing, and just be very cautious and aware of, because we've had graduations, we've had proms where there's been large gatherings, and people have transmitted the virus to others. Even if you've been vaccinated, you can still get the virus, but again, like I said, the effects are far less than if you're not vaccinated, and they can be pretty severe. You have to go to the hospital, on a ventilator, and all that. Again, we passed 1 million mark on deaths, number of deaths related to this COVID virus. There's still a lot of disinformation out there, which we're fighting against, trying to get people to understand that when polio was a problem, you took vaccination, that eradicated polio. Smallpox, we eradicated that. And this is the same type of virus. The only way you can deal with a virus is through vaccination, not through diet, not through antibiotics, not through all that other stuff, okay? And it's important that people understand that, okay? Children should be vaccinated before they go to school, so there shouldn't be a big uproar about people haven't been vaccinated to keep from transmitting the virus. So if anybody have any questions, just ask me, and if I can answer them, I will.
Can you give me the number for the diabetes again?
The diabetes number, again, is 317-221-2104.
The housing.
And the housing is 317-221-2150. I couldn't hear you. The number for?
Debbie.
Oh, Devery.
Yep.
Okay, it's a 317-221-3081. And I'm gonna try to get Devery to come here. And she carries, again, she has testing kits. And so you can always call Marion County Public Health to get testing kits. If they have them, they'll give them to you, okay, for free. Okay? Any more questions? Oh, good. Thank you.
And as we prepare to close out our meeting again, thank you for coming, taking the time, and we always say, when you come through that door, you're gonna learn something, at least one thing new before you leave out. And so every month, on the bottom of the agenda is our meeting date and location for next month. Next month, we're gonna look at having the MCAT people from IMPD that deals with the mental health, those type of police runs, as well as we're gonna have the gentleman that was here from the a training program, a free accessible training program for next month. But next month, we will try to focus on some mental health and hopefully solutions for people. So I want to thank everyone for taking time out of their schedules today. If this was your first time, hope that you felt welcome. Hope you found some things of value, and definitely have the information that can empower you on free, low-cost, affordable services and information that are available in our city. And before we go, we have another raffle today because, you know, everybody doesn't eat for free, and with inflation going up. So those that contribute to the meal every month, we do a little raffle. And so our representative from the congressman's office picked 2 names, and if there's